Welcome to Shiv Shastri's podcasts. Is there life after death? What happens after death? Are people reincarnated after death? These questions have many answers, some based on modern science and others based on ancient thought experiments. Let us start with reincarnation, which translates roughly as rebirth. There are an enormous number of stories of people who remember past life events. This is a subject that has received some serious research attention recently. One might argue that remembering a past life is not the same as being reborn, and I accept that argument. Perhaps it's best not to call it rebirth, but call it past life recall. But implicit in this statement is that there are people who recall accurate and verifiable details of having lived as a different person with a different name at some past time. Let me cite a few well known examples. Anne Frank was a Jewish girl in Germany during World War II who wrote an autobiographical diary that was discovered after her death in a Nazi concentration camp. In 1954, 9 years after Anne Frank's death, a girl called Barbro Karlen was born in Sweden. This girl remembered being Anne Frank in a previous life and insisted on being called Anne. She wrote a book about her experiences as two people in two lives. Another famous case of past life memory was a girl called Dorothy Eady, born in 1904 in England, who grew up and proved conclusively that she had lived in Egypt around 1200 BCE under a pharaoh named Seti. She became a famous Egyptologist and helped scholars translate ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics and help them make new discoveries. These are just two famous cases among hundreds of others. In India, Sri Lanka, and the Far East, past life memory in a child is accepted as the truth and not thought to be extraordinary. In the Christian West, with the belief that there can be no life after death, past life memories have been looked at with fear and suspicion until recently. With a large number of verified cases, there is now greater acceptance that past life memories do occur. Recent research has come up with the following data about past life memories. Typically, these memories manifest in a young child around the age of 2 or 3 years. They often remember their name from a past life and claim to be that person rather than the name they have been given. They also say that their parents were different from the ones they have now and recall a different place of residence. Events and places are remembered in remarkable detail as also the mode of death in the past life. Very often, the death has been unnatural and violent, such as war, murder, or accident. The child often has frightening dreams and fears things associated with death in the past life. Most children tend to start forgetting these memories by the age of 5 to 8 years. This raises several questions. One question is, what happens after death? If we ignore ancient Hindu wisdom on this subject and stick to what modern science has uncovered, we get some interesting and unexplained facts. There are now a number of well documented scientific records of experiences of people who've been declared dead while under careful medical observation, but who have regained consciousness and have unexplainable memories of what they experienced in the period when they had been thought to be dead. In most instances, people report a feeling of calmness despite knowing that they are dead, and the experience of seeing a white light is common. But what is remarkable is that in many instances, at a time when people have been thought to be dead, they have seen themselves floating above and outside their own body and recall what other people, such as doctors and nurses, were saying or doing. In some cases, these out of body experiences accurately report things that they cannot possibly have known. For example, one man who regained consciousness after being declared dead reported noticing an old shoe on a ledge outside the window beyond a corner that no one could directly see. This was later confirmed to be true. As if to correlate with the idea of post-death memories of a previous life, numerous people with past life memories recall where they were buried and events that occurred during their funeral. There is one story of a girl who was born into the same family in which a girl had earlier died. She recalled that a toy that she used to play with had been buried with her, indicating a memory that a deceased person should not have. Clearly, the idea of death being the end of it all is not true. There frequently is life after death. In Hindu narrative, it is taken as a given that people live multiple lives, but most do not remember earlier lives. Empirically, based on available evidence, this is likely to be true. This throws up a few interesting questions. The first is, what is consciousness? In Hindu tradition, consciousness exists outside of and independent of the body. In fact, it is said that the idea that human consciousness is restricted to one body for one lifetime is based on masking the true ultimate consciousness that pervades the universe. Everything else must be masked out so that human awareness gets restricted to just the five senses. In quantum physics, there is some scientific backing for the possibility of the existence of connections that are not directly observable by humans but can be shown to exist experimentally. Particles can exist simultaneously in two separate places at one time in a phenomenon called entanglement and are interlinked and connected in some unexplained manner. What is known about quantum entanglement of particles does not in any way explain how consciousness can exist outside of a body, but it merely supports the idea that there are unexplained processes involved in past life memories and out of body experiences after clinical death. Another question that crops up in relation to past life memories is why no one has observed a person who has lived in a future time period and is then born in the present with memories of a life in the future. In science, it is said that time goes only in one direction, from present to future, and cannot be reversed. Perhaps the absence of people with memories of the future serves as empirical proof of this. But there could be another explanation based on Hindu narratives. By Hindu thought, multiple lifetimes in the form of humans or animals must be lived until a being achieves unity with the ultimate, all-pervading, all-knowing consciousness that will not be restricted to one lifetime or one body. Until then, a being will undergo a series of births, deaths and rebirths as a spatially and temporally restricted, conscious, living being. Each lifetime that one lives is affected by deeds done in a previous lifetime, constituting what is known as karma. This would mean that a future life cannot be lived before a previous life is completed, and therefore it is not possible to recall a future life. In fact, the knowledge of Vedanta is designed to help humans see their own deeper inner consciousness so they can bypass multiple lifetimes by recognizing and joining the Supreme Consciousness. Nevertheless, this is an unexplained paradox. Thanks for listening if you got this far. Do share my podcast with others and subscribe to this channel.